Hey guys, DM Scotty here. Good to have you with me. I was just going to do a little rant today. Nothing super exciting. I haven't talked much about Gridless lately, and so I thought I'd do that. I thought I'd do a little video on that. You guys know how I feel about grids. I do not use grids at all. It's all measuring. Half the time we don't even have to measure because my players at this point can eyeball a lot of the measurements already without, using a measuring stick. Also, the bases on most minis are about an inch, so you could even waddle the mini over to you want. Because some people are like, well, how do you do like complex corners and things like that? You could like waddle the mini if you want, or you could use the measuring stick and measure to the corner, like say 3 to the corner and then 3 around the corner. And there's none of that bull crap about some squares are 2 and some are 1. It's all 1 inch. When you move an inch, it's an inch. That's one thing that's great about Gridless. You don't have to worry what square you're in, and if it's not where exactly you want your character to be, but it's a square there, so you got to be there. So another thing I have had people say to me is that their players are going to whine about it. You're the DM. Most players do not want a DM. If you tell them that you're going gridless, and they're going to do it, or you're not going to DM, if it comes to that, they will say, okay, where's my ruler? Or where's my stick? They're not going to say no. If you threaten not to DM, if it comes to that, hopefully it wouldn't come to that, but if it does come to that, they're going to say, yeah, heck, where's my measuring stick? Because most players do not want to DM. It's hard work. It's rewarding work, as us DMs know, but it is hard work, and a lot of players don't want to do it. And most players are not gonna quit your game just because you go gridless. So make your life easier. Go gridless. Don't be intimidated by your players. They're not gonna quit. They're not gonna quit just because you make them go gridless. I've had some people say that it's easier with grids. You could make that argument that it is easier with grids if you're lazy. But it's not as fun. It really isn't as fun with grids as it is without grids. If you try it, you won't go back. You won't want to go back to grids. Give it a few sessions, and you'll be like, why did I ever use grids? Especially if you're a DM and you have to craft stuff that fits exactly within the gridded system. You got to make something that's exactly an inch. Like with me, I just make it whatever size I want. If I feel that I need a big room, I make a big room, and I don't worry if it's a half or a quarter inch off because I put the wall on and it doesn't fit a whole grid square on there. It doesn't matter because I don't have any grids. So not having grids is going to make your life so much easier, and your players aren't going to leave because you don't have grids. I've also, also people say, well, it's better for tactically for them to know. Well, they can measure too. They can still measure if they want to. So it's not like they won't know. Also, with things like with templates that you can make, like say circular templates. Since you're not using grids, the burst is actually a circle. It's not some crazy square that it has like the corners missing. Like some bursts they have a square, then they have some boxes on the edges, and then the 4 corners are empty. So anything in that 4 corners is not going to get hit. Well, if you're doing a burst that's a complete circle, anything in those corners is going to get hit. So if anything, the players are at an advantage because they're going to hit more stuff with a burst. Because the burst is actually a real circle and not a fake circle that they tried to make fit on a grid. So, that excuse really doesn't fly with me for players complaining about that because I think the players are actually at an advantage. Like I say, I've talked about gridless. It's not an exact science. If a player's less than a half an inch off, give them the movement. Let them reach the target. They're freaking heroes. It's like don't worry. That that it's a quarter of an inch off or something. If it's close enough, it's close enough. It's like, that's not the kind of stuff, that you want to worry about. These guys are heroes, and, always give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, if it's over a ½ inch, or it's a ½ inch or more, you probably don't want to do that really. But I wouldn't give it to them. But, you can be a little more flexible with the movement with it. Characters can stand where they want. They don't have to be in a square. There's just so many reasons, not to have squares. And squares were never used in D&D before. This is only a new development. It's only companies that have made up these squares that want to sell you tiles with squares and maps with squares on them. So, and paper with squares on it. So it's like, they're just they made up this way to play to sell you stuff. So it's like, make your own stuff, play on the table, don't use grids, don't worry about it, don't sweat it. We all want to support the companies, but we buy the books. The books are expensive enough. All the other accoutrement that you buy for your games, that's expensive enough. It's like, you don't need to buy the maps. Make the maps yourself. Make the terrain yourself. Make the dungeon tiles yourself. And don't worry about the grid. Your life will be so much easier not having to count out the grid and mark it off on the tiles and make sure everything lines up on a grid. And you can set it up exactly how you want it without having to worry about a grid. It just will make your life so much easier as a DM, and the players will love it. I mean, they'll end up loving it. Players have just been trained, these days that they play on grids, and like I said, role-playing games did not use grids. You had a piece of graph paper that had four squares on it, and that was a 20 by 20 room or something. It wasn't like a grid. It was a grid, but it wasn't like every little square is a 5 foot. It depended on the size of the map. So, and it was mostly in the mind's eye. There wasn't even figures. So when they moved to this tactical system, they came up with this grid system to sell you crap. So it's like, make your own stuff, make your own great stuff, and don't worry about the grid. Well, that's my rant, and I hadn't talked about Gridless in a while. I didn't want you to think I was forgetting about it. So I'll see you again soon on the DM's Craft, and we'll craft some Gridless stuff. See you then.